Mr. Burzynski, could I have you introduce yourself briefly?
I am Mark Burzynski. I'm a candidate for the commission for the city of Helena. I have, last 17 years, I've worked at Blue Cross Blue Shield of Montana, and I retired in April 1st of this year.
Okay, very good. What did you do at Blue Cross Blue Shield?
I served in a variety of senior executive positions, including Chief Financial Officer.
Okay, very good. And how long have you lived in Helena?
I've lived in Helena since 2000, 17 years.
And is this your first time running for elective office?
It is my first time running for elected office.
Okay, very good. Mr. Burzynski, why did you decide to run for this position?
My family and I enjoy a very high quality of life in Helena because people serve their community, and they serve, whether it be as mayor, as a commissioner, as a teacher, as a city employee, as a volunteer through Babe Ruth baseball or small fry football or Florence Crittenton or Helena Food Share. And my wife and I thought this would be an ideal time for us to return the favor to our community and serve Helena. So I decided to run for the commission based on my background. We hope that my service does well for Helena.
Mm-hmm. I think you alluded to it a little bit, but what do you feel are your biggest qualifications for this position?
I think my most outstanding qualifications for the position include my background, professional background in executive leadership, but specifically strategic planning and execution, finance, economics, and sheer leadership.
Mm-hmm. What do you think is the #1 issue facing the city going forward?
Given some of the decisions and discussions that the commissioners have had, I think the #1 issue is for the commissioners to restore confidence in the citizens and taxpayers of Helena that they are indeed focused on the critical strategic issues that are facing the city of Helena.
Mm-hmm. How satisfied are you with the services that are currently being provided by the city, and do you think there's room for improvement to be made?
Okay, I think the city employees do one heck of a job given the fragility of our infrastructure, keeping the city intact, making sure we had clean water, taking care of our dirty water, taking care of our roads, because they do it on a shoestring budget. They actually, in my opinion, the city employees perform miracles. I think the key areas that we need to continue to improve upon are funding capital replacement and reducing the fragility of our infrastructure, annexing areas of the city of Helena, and business development. And if I could give you an example, recently a new subdivision on North Montana did not become annexed into the city, and that cost us 162 taxpayers, which decreases your tax base and reduces your abilities to increase economies of scale.
What do you think is currently working well in city government, and what do you think needs to be working better?
Okay, if I could reiterate a point, I think that the elements that are working well, I think, are the city employees and the division or department directors who are working with very limited budgets and making sure that the residents and taxpayers of Helena receive the services and functions that they expect as taxpayers and that they need.
And what do you think could be working better?
If there's one thing that I hear about routinely from the electorate, it is that they would like projects, especially business development, the permitting process for buildings to happen at a much speedier rate. For example, a developer spoke to me about the fact that in Billings and in Butte, his project got off the ground twice as fast as it did in Helena. The downside of that kind of length of time is that an investor is losing return on his or her investment in the time it takes to bring it up. So I think it's the whole issue of how we facilitate business development in the city of Helena. Because frankly, if you look over the past 5-6 years, there hasn't been hardly any business development in Helena at all.
Mm-hmm. Are there issues that you think that the city government hasn't paid enough attention to in the last few years?
I would, if there are areas that the city hasn't paid what I would consider adequate attention to, I think it's how the city works with developers to facilitate a project happening. How do we create a collaborative discussion, a collaborative or supportive, mutually supportive environment with developers and builders to get things done? And I think the other thing that should be focused on is the proactively seeking out business opportunities. I would like to see a commissioner function as an ambassador on behalf of the city of Helena to actually go out and seek business to come into Helena. Because frankly, Missoula, Great Falls, Billings, Butte, Bozeman, they're all fighting to get companies and businesses to locate in their particular locale. So you have to be very aggressive about how you do this, and you have to sell Helena.
Very good. From a philosophical point of view, what do you think the role of the city government ought to be?
The role of city government, if you think about why people come together in government, it's to actually put together services and functions that it's impractical for them to do on their own. So as a result, we look forward to the city for safety and security through our police and firefighters. We look for roads that are maintained and facilitate transportation and commerce. We look for our water to be clean and abundant. We look for our wastewater to be appropriately treated. We look that our environment is protected, such as the nutrients going into Lake Helena. We look to city to help develop neighborhoods and businesses. And we look to attract tourists. So I think it's just these infrastructure issues that bring people together in communities, their commitment to pay taxes. What are they paying taxes for? Because that's the commitment they make. I'm coming into Helena and be willing to pay taxes so I receive these services, which enhance my quality of life.
Mm-hmm. And what specifically do you think the city commission ought to be concerning itself with?
The city commissioners ought to be focused on Helena's infrastructure, and that is clean water, wastewater treatment, nutrient management, the infrastructure that supports our streets and roads, our police and fire responders, the attraction of business, much like many of the items that I've previously addressed.
Okay, very good. Now, several of the candidates running in the city elections this year are running as part of slates with other candidates. Are you endorsing or have been endorsed by any of the other candidates running?
I would say endorse is a strong word, but I would say that I certainly find that Sean Logan, as our former fire chief, certainly knows the city's infrastructure inside and out. It would be hard to argue against Sean Logan as a very good commissioner. So I have to say that I myself would support Sean just by virtue of his knowledge and everything that he brings to the table in terms of what he knows of the city.
Okay, very good. Well, that's about all I have. What message would you like to leave voters with as they make their decisions?
If there was a message I'd like to leave the voters, I would like your vote, because I understand what you'd like accomplished or what your commissioners focused on as taxpayers and citizens of Helena. I want to focus on the things that are important to you and not extraneous to the city of Helena. I want to be focused on the things that the commission and the city of Helena can control. And in addition, I want to make sure that our infrastructure exists for the next 75 years. Much of our infrastructure is approaching over 100 years old, which could ultimately put a significant cash or capital burden on the residents of Helena. I want to make sure that we strategically plan to, let's just say, make sure that doesn't happen. And frankly, right now, I think our infrastructure is suffering, as it is in many cities across the nation, which has been well documented.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Burzynski.
You're welcome, thank you.